In this next video, we will look at spatial reference. You will remember when we added the justice courts and province new data, we got a warning us about spatial extent information that is missing or lacking for certain data sets. Alright, so that means that one of these data sets does not have spatial reference. Now, spatial reference is basically geographic coordinate systems and map projections that we discussed in class or will still discuss in class. And this information is very important for spatial data because that determines the way in which data will be displayed or referenced to the surface of the Earth. Okay, so the way in which we explore this is to right click on a data set and click on its properties. And then in the source tab, if you click on the source tab, you'll find the information on the geographic coordinate system that is being used. In this case, it states that it's a geographic coordinate system, so it's not in a projected coordinate system. So it's only a geographic coordinate system, and it gives the information of this geographic coordinate system that is used for this province new data set. So we can see geographic coordinate system RTBSUK 1994 has been allocated to this specific data set. If we go to justice courts, click on properties again. In this case, we see coordinate system undefined. Okay, so this basically means there's no spatial reference defined for this dataset, and this can lead to a lot of trouble. Okay, so we need to rectify this. We need to ensure that all the data that we use does have some sort of spatial reference system defined to it. Now, because the codes are displayed on top of the province dataset, we can assume that their spatial reference might be the same. Otherwise, if this courts dataset was in a completely different reference system, it would not display the way it is currently displaying on top of the provinces of South Africa. So this means that we can define the same coordinate system or reference system to the justice courts layer as the one defined for province new. Now, there are two tools that are very important that you're going to make use of. The first thing that I want to show you, the incorrect way of trying to fix the spatial reference is by going here and trying to click on data source and changing things here. Like, you do not do this through the properties tab. The way in which we fix it is by using a tool. So if I click on my ARC toolbox, it's going to be under data management tools, and there you will find a toolbox called projections and transformations. So if I click on that, the two tools that you will be using is the define projection or the project tool. Now, these tools do different things. So the first thing that we now want to do is we just want to define a projection for justice courts because it is being displayed on top of the province new, and it seems to be the same. We can use the define tool to just say, okay, just where they currently stands undefined or not defined, we want the system to allocate the same coordinate system that as the one defined for province new to justice court. So we're going to click on define projection, you double click it, and the input data or feature class will be justice courts. Now, any tool that you will use will have a little help feature here. So if you click on one of the fields, it gives you a short explanation of what needs to be the input or what needs to happen there. So in this case, input data feature class, data or feature class whose projection is to be defined. Okay, so in this case, it's going to be justice courts because that's the one that is currently undefined. So we click there, and then it asks us to define the coordinate system that should be used here. Okay, so for that, we click on this little icon to the right here. And now we need to select the applicable coordinate system. Okay, so there are two ways of doing this now. The first one is to go through the list of coordinate systems. So almost every coordinate system is listed in the software. So we know in this case it's a geographic coordinate system. So this is where we will need to search. It's not a projected one. So we'll click on geographic. I know it should be RTBSUK because that's what we saw when we opened provinces. So it's going to be under Africa, and I can search here for RTBSUK. There it is, 1994. Now, another way of doing this is you can see there's a little folder here, layers. Now, if I click on that, it lists all the available coordinate systems. In other words, for the data that's currently in the table of contents, one of those features or data sets as a reference system of RTBSDUK, we know that's the provinces one, and the other one is unknown. That's the one we're currently working with, courts. We know that. But we want it to be the same as for provinces, so the easier way then is to go there and just click on RTBSDUK 1994, so it automatically found it for us, and we can say OK. There it's listed now, and now I can say OK, and now it will define that projection for justice courts. So if I right click there again, if I go to properties, you can see it's no longer undefined. It's now RTBSDUK 1994. Note that nothing changed in terms of the way in which the data is displayed. Okay, that's because I made use of define projection, and that's exactly what define projection does. It does not reproject the data, as we discussed in class. It doesn't project the data, changing the shape, the direction, or anything like that. It merely goes, and actually in the background, it just adds a little file that tells the computer that Justice Court's spatial reference system should be RTBSDUK 1994. So that's what define projection does. The project tool, on the other hand, is something a bit different. Okay, so let's have a look at that. So if I double click the project tool, sorry about that. The project tool is the tool that I use if I want to change the projection or the reference system of a dataset. Okay, we now saw that both of these two datasets are in the geographic coordinate system RTBSDUK 1994. But let's say I want to project this data onto a projected system. Okay, so what I need to do then is I need to select the dataset. So let's use province new now, and there it will state what's the current system. So currently we know it's in geographic coordinate system RTBSDUK 1994. It now asks us to define an output location. And why is this? This is because every time you project a dataset, it creates a copy of the dataset, a new dataset, and that copy, that new dataset that it creates, that new feature class, will have the new projection that we decide on. Okay, so a new dataset will basically be created. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to use my temporary folder, and I'm going to call it project temp. Okay, you can call it whatever you want, and I'm going to say save. Okay, now I need to select an output coordinate system. So that's the coordinate system to which I would like to project. So for that, again, you click there, and now you need to select something. Okay, so this time this is not going to work because both of them are already in RTBSDUK 1994, and that's not what I want to do. I want to change it from RTBSDUK 1994 to something else, and I want to go to a projected system in this case, and I'm going to go for a system called Africa Equal Area Connect. Okay, so that's the one that I'm going to use. So I'm going to click on that. It's located on the continent projected systems, continental Africa. I'm going to say OK. And now it warns me about a transformation that's going to take place, and that's because of the differences in the datums between these two systems. Okay, the one is based on RTBSDUK 1994, the other one is based on WGS 1984. Okay, so it just makes me aware of this, that this is going to happen. And for now, I'm just going to say okay. All right, so I'm going to look for that new data set now. I'm going to go to add, I'm going to go to C temp, and there I found it, project temp. That's the one I just created. Now I'm going to say add, and now a new layer is added to our map. But note that we can't see it. It should be a bit of a lighter color. If I turn it on and off, I can't see it. Sorry about that. Airplane passing over. Alright, passing by. So I'm going to right click on that and say zoom to layer, and there I can see it now. Okay, but now I don't see the point. So what is going on here? If I click on zoom to full extent, okay, now what you see here is that's the new projected layer, and there's the other two data sets. If I zoom in there, and I have to zoom quite a bit, what I find there is, okay, there's my old province new and justice courts in WGS, and far away from that and is the projected data set. Why is this happening? Okay, this is because I now projected this data into a new system, and now they aren't displayed on the same place anymore. Okay, and that's the issue with projections and coordinate systems, and that's why we need to be aware of the spatial reference that's allocated to our data sets. Otherwise we get issues like this: our data don't display correctly, and more importantly, we can make big mistakes in the way we analyze our data and create our maps. Okay, but ArcMap makes it a bit easier for us. So what we can do, you can right click here on the display window, so just right click anywhere and go to data frame properties. And ArcMap has a function that it calls on the fly projection. Okay, so currently it states your current coordinate system is no coordinate system. So usually what will happen is the first layer that you import into ArcMap by adding data, using the adding data feature, the spatial reference system of that layer will be allocated here. That's the default way. But because we added justice courts and it had no spatial reference, nothing was allocated here. But what we can now do is we can say, all right, we want to allocate an on-the-fly projection of Africa Albus equal area. And we can say, okay. So we select it, we say, okay. It's going to give us a warning. We say yes. And look what happens. Suddenly, everything is displayed together again. Okay, so what just happened? For the data frame, this area in which we view our maps, okay, what we did is we defined a spatial reference system for this map area. So we decided that we are working in a projected system of Albus equal area. Okay, so that's the system in which we want our data to be displayed. So now what happens, whenever you add a data set like justice courts that is actually in a geographic coordinate system of Hartbeespoort, what ArcMap does in the background is, because the system is known, it takes this information and it automatically projects it to display as Albus equal area. So it's on the fly. So it does not change anything in that data set. It does not edit it or anything. Just for display purposes, it takes it to Albus equal area so that all my data can be displayed in the same system. So this can only work if all the data sets at least have a spatial reference system defined to it. So that's on the fly projection. Okay, so you need to play around with this. You need to open up your ArcMap software. You need to add this data again and change the coordinate systems. Now, just a note of caution. You can easily mess up the spatial reference information of a data set. And what I mean by that, if I now go and use this new layer that I created, which is now a projected coordinate system, Albus equal area connect. Okay, if I take that and I use the define tool, define projection tool, and I go and I say, okay, so this is currently in that Albus, and I use the define tool to say I want to take it to geographic coordinate system, like that. You can see it's gone. Okay, I've lost it again. It's actually totally gone now. Okay, so what happened? Now I messed up my spatial reference. Now I actually have to delete this whole data set, because all I now did is I told the computer delete the information about Albus equal area and just replace it with the information for geographic coordinate system Hartbeespoort. But in fact, I did not project the data, so the actual geometry, the actual spatial reference information for the data itself did not change, and now the data is gone and I've got issues with it. So be careful when you use define projection and when you use project. Define projection you use when a data set does not have a coordinate system defined, but you know what it should be, as we had in the case of courts, because it was displayed over provinces and you could see it looks the same. We assumed it is Hartbeespoort. Define projection. The project tool, project, that we use if we want to change it from one system to another. So we want to take it from Hartbeespoort, for instance, to Albus equal area. That's where we use the project tool.